Okay, imagine pouring 9 whole years of top-tier engineering, absolutely massive billions in funding, and the combined political will of 3 European powerhouses into a single revolutionary aerospace megaproject. Now, imagine all of that just grinding to a sudden, fatal halt. I mean, how does a highly anticipated international defense alliance of that scale just collapse overnight? Welcome back to Air Flight Space, where we explore aviation stories, air safety investigations, industry developments, and the lessons shaping modern flight. Today, we're conducting a complete autopsy on the sudden demise of Europe's Future Combat Air System, or FCAS. In this explainer, let's dive right into it.
At first, everything seemed perfectly normal for the project. But then came June 9, 2026. Right on the eve of the highly anticipated ILA Berlin Air Show, the aviation world was hit with a truly dramatic announcement. German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius stepped up to the microphone and basically delivered a fatal blow to the entire program. He confirmed what many had only whispered about behind closed doors. The joint endeavor was dead. It's just a staggering admission. Let's step back for a second and look at exactly what was lost here, because understanding the sheer ambition of this project is absolutely key to grasping the scale of its failure.
Section 1. The 9-year vision. Replacing Europe's fighters.
The technological leap this project represented is, frankly, mind-blowing. They weren't just building another airplane here, they were trying to build the New Generation Fighter, or NGF. This was meant to be a full-blown 6th-generation combat platform. And in aviation terms, that means a highly networked, incredibly stealthy aircraft acting as a flying command hub in the sky. This single platform was designed to replace both the French Dassault Rafale and the German and Spanish Eurofighters by around the year 2040. It was supposed to be the unified future of European air superiority.
Our investigation shows a project that actually advanced pretty steadily for nearly a decade. From its inception 9 years ago, the team successfully navigated Phase 1B, wrapping up the initial conceptual and preliminary design work. But investigators noticed something unusual when the project reached Phase 2. See, this phase required actual demonstrator production, literally bending metal and building a physical prototype. And this is exactly where the project hit a sudden, fatal roadblock. It never made it past this point, completely wiping out that 2040 operational goal.
Section 2. The Architect Dispute, a fatal industrial fault line. This brings us right to the early warning signs of our investigation. And guys, keep this detail in mind because it is literally the most crucial point of this entire explainer. As Pistorius clearly pointed out, the cancellation was primarily due to differing positions among the industries. It wasn't about technological limitations. Europe's top engineers didn't suddenly forget how to build a fighter jet. They didn't hit some unsolvable aerodynamic wall. The fault line here was entirely based on industrial politics.
So at the center of the ring, we had two absolute heavyweights. On the left, Dassault Aviation representing France, and on the right, Airbus Defense and Space representing Germany and Spain. For years, these two aerospace titans were locked in this grueling wrangling match over the division of work. I mean, building a 6th-generation fighter involves billions in contracts and decades worth of intellectual property. Neither side wanted to be the junior partner. They were fundamentally deadlocked over who got to build what, and honestly, who was actually in charge of the whole shebang.
Now, this detail would later become incredibly important. Our investigation reveals that Dassault drew a hard line in the sand. They were absolutely insistent on being the designated architect for the platform. In the highly complex world of aerospace engineering, being the architect isn't just a fancy title. It means having the final say on the design, the systems integration, and the flight control software. Dassault's rigid demand for ultimate control created an insurmountable rift with their German and Spanish partners over at Airbus, who felt their own top-tier expertise was just being totally sidelined.
Section 3. Escalation. Negotiations break down.
Right, so here is where the situation evolved from a boardroom engineering dispute into a full-blown international political crisis. When the industries couldn't agree, the politicians actually stepped in. Germany and France attempted to mediate the dispute from the very highest levels of government, but ultimately, without success. It's a fascinating human reaction. Despite intense governmental pressure, national pride, and the obvious strategic need to save the alliance, the industrial divide was simply way too deep. The governments essentially found themselves completely unable to force these massive defense contractors to just sit down and compromise.
Which leads us to a pretty critical question as the project was nosediving. Was there an alternative to total cancellation? I mean, when a multi-billion-euro aircraft program is plunging toward the Earth, you pull every single lever you can to pull up, right? And there was in fact one final, desperate maneuver attempted.
Section 4. The two-fighter alternative, a last-ditch effort.
Just a month prior to the collapse, during a meeting in Manching, near Munich, Airbus Defense and Space CEO Mike Schulhorn pitched a really radical pivot. He suggested that moving to a two-fighter solution could potentially resolve the whole situation. What he basically meant was, hey, instead of forcing Dassault and Airbus to share one airplane design, let's just build one jet fully optimized for France and a separate distinct jet optimized for Germany and Spain. It was a last-ditch attempt to give both industries those leadership roles they were so desperately craving.
But as Airbus CEO Guillaume Faury pointed out, by the time the solution was proposed, industrial discussions were already completely exhausted. The engineering teams were just burned out and totally deadlocked. Faury stressed that the governments had to make the final call because the companies could literally no longer talk to each other productively. By the time this two-fighter solution was put on the table, it was simply too late to salvage the working relationships. The fatal crash of the project had become inevitable.
Section 5. The fallout. What survives the wreckage?
Well, when an aircraft project of this magnitude breaks apart, investigators always look through the debris to see what, if anything, can actually be salvaged, and it turns out it's not a total loss. While the dream of a common European fighter jet is dead, specific technological subcomponents actually survive the wreckage. The research poured into advanced engines, remote carriers, which, by the way, are essentially autonomous combat drones flying alongside the main jet, and digital connectivity for a combat cloud. All of that could potentially progress further. The airframe itself might be gone, but the high-tech organs developed during this 9-year project will likely be transplanted into future national defense projects.
Germany, for its part, definitely isn't giving up on modernizing its air force. Minister Pistorius made it crystal clear that Germany remains committed to exploring new avenues and partnerships to realize a sixth-generation fighter. They still desperately need a replacement for the Eurofighter, and with the French partnership officially dissolved, they're now actively looking across the global aerospace industry for new allies who are actually willing to share the workload a bit more evenly.
And this is where the wider context becomes really fascinating. Just as the French-German-Spanish alliance collapses, we look over to the UK. The United Kingdom is separately moving forward with its Global Combat Air Program, or GCAP, partnering up with Italy and Japan. It's a really stark contrast. While one massive European effort completely grounded itself over internal work-share disputes, another massive international coalition led by the UK is steadily advancing toward that exact same sixth-generation goal.
Section 6. Lessons for European Air Power. The autopsy conclusion.
So, what can we learn from this story? Here is the one detail I want you to walk away with today. This became a huge lesson for investigators and defense analysts alike. Complex international defense projects rarely fail because the physics are too hard. They fail because of insurmountable industrial politics, national pride, and rigid disputes over who gets to be the architect. The FCAS didn't crash because of gravity. It crashed because two aerospace giants couldn't agree on who was flying the plane.
Which leaves us with this final provocative thought. With this shared fighter terminated, can a divided Europe still effectively compete in the incredibly high-stakes, sixth-generation fighter race against the rest of the world? It's a question that's honestly going to shape the next 50 years of aviation. Thanks for watching Airflight Space. If you found this explainer informative, leave a like and subscribe for more aviation investigations and air safety documentaries. Share your thoughts below, and I'll see you in the next explainer.